Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to what I'm very excited to say is a brand new venture. The beginning of a new journey. There always has to be a first page to every single story that we write, and hopefully we're going to get some very, very creative things going on this evening. Welcome, everybody, to Ventauri Pro Series. I am very excited to see what we can achieve and what we can manage over the next few weeks, months, and hopefully years, because by Jove, have we got quite the things in store. For all of you lovely people watching, thank you for joining us on this Monday evening as we try to whet the appetite, starting things off with a social race under the Catalan skies at the Circuit de Catalunya in Barcelona. We've got a calendar to talk about, driver lineups to sink our teeth into as well, but first and foremost, commandeering commentary corner for this evening's action. Myself, Tom Wilkinson, delighted to say alongside me is Nathan Richards. Nathan, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm very well, thank you, Tom. Great to be back in the commentary box. It's been a while since I've got into some proper league racing action on the F1 game. So, no, great to get into the thick of it. I mean, for a social race, this is quite a competitive grid. So I think we're definitely going to get some great racing this evening.
100%. Obviously on the new 26 DLC as well. It's been out for a few weeks now, getting up to grips with obviously the very new car models and the very different battery management tactics and techniques that the drivers have had to work their way through. Very realistic, of course, but a very interesting and very alien way of driving for a lot of these esports drivers, you would imagine.
Yes, definitely. It's been a bit of a big change, of course, the main thing being the battery, a lot different to what we saw on last game. It, pretty much overhauls the way you have to overtake and defend against other cars on track. I think the driving of the cars themselves, the only main changes really that are noticeable to most players are you need to run a lot higher brake bias because it's very more prone to rear locking, and also the front can be a little bit more pointy as well. But I think apart from that, there's not that many differences with driving the car themselves. It's all about the battery and managing that properly, which I think it's going to be quite interesting because on this grid we have a mix of F1 esports drivers, we've got F2 drivers, F3 level drivers, so we've got a bit of a disparity, and it will be interesting to see who's kind of got the better battery management. Sometimes if you're probably a slower driver on pace but you've got better battery management, you might have a higher chance of being a little bit further up the field than those that have just got downright raw pace.
And you've spoken there about the grid. I think we should have a look at the lineup that we've got for this evening's action. 22 cars on the grid, first time since F1 2016, I believe we've been able to say those words. And like you said, some familiar faces in there, some lesser proven talent as well. But like you said, an exceptionally competitive grid, and it should hopefully provide some enthralling action around Barcelona.
Oh yeah, certainly. I mean, looking through the grid, Mercedes already is probably, along with Haas, the best team we've got tonight. Tycho Hardy and Julian Klaffenbach, of course, both of them took part in F1 sim racing last season. Julian was there all season. Tycho jumped in for a couple of races. I think it was at the end in the final event. And both of them done a decent job. And then, of course, Ferrari got Gabor Chantos, who I believe has now left RHG after what was a season where he got his first F1 esports drive. He's alongside Gina Pressacan, another up-and-coming talent. McLaren, you've got Luca Rapassa, of course, part of the McLaren team as a development driver. Certainly someone I think we'll see in esports in the near future. Alongside Steven Navasso, who's also working his way up the ranks. You've got Red Bull with Sergio Sobrino and Alex Santana. Of course, Alex has been here for a very long time, one of the most experienced men on the grid. Alongside Sergio, who's just got his seat in TC Esports, which of course is the team run by Thibaut Courtois. We've got Alpine with Scott Holmes and Jensen Rowson, two of the drivers that are just working their way up, both in F2 at the minute, and definitely doing well in the higher level of league racing. The same goes for Tamas and Alexander Dimas in Racing Bulls. Then Haas, very similar to Mercedes, really strong lineup. We've got Joris Kroos and Tamas Gal. I think pretty much all the races bar two, they were teamed together. Joris in the first event was brilliant. I think he finished 6th after the first event, got a couple of top 5 finishes. Really strong driver. Williams, we have Gabriel Quintino, who's joined one of the other new teams we have in the scene, which is the Mata Racing, of course, owned by Cristiano De Mata, the former F1 driver back in the early 2000s. He's alongside Alejandro Loureiro, one of our new drivers moving over from the console to PC. Then we have Liam Stevens and Tony Hietala. Of course, Liam, part of the Aston Martin team as a development driver. Tony just won the PSGL PC F2 title, so someone you expect to see a lot of heading on to this game. Then the final two teams, we had the brand new teams, Eddie and Cadillac. We've got Joe Murphy and Cameron Dades, of course, Cameron XR8G driver. Joe also moved from console. I think it was the end of F1 24, another bright driver when he actually turns up to races. And then we have Larry Torquay and Lucas Beesner, two very, very competitive drivers. And I mean, that, Tom, is a great grid. I think for people that sit there and don't watch league racing will always know themselves that this is a really good grid. You don't need to look into it too much to kind of spot some of the names that we got here tonight.
Hugely exciting to get us started. And hopefully, like we said, we'll provide some enthralling action just to cue you up on what's going to be taking place. Short qualifying session, 50% race. That equates to, of course, 33 laps around the circuit to Catalunya tonight. And we are very, very close to getting into that 18-minute qualifying session. Before we jump in, let's have a quick look. We've spoken about the drivers. What about the route around the globe that we're going to be trekking across in just under a month's time, beginning down under in Australia on the 14th of July. And look at where we jet. China, Great Britain, Silverstone, through the heart of Europe in the Styrian Hills of Austria, Suzuka, Spa, Bahrain, Circuit of the Americas, and then Saudi Arabia, Mexico City, the hallowed Brazilian bitumen of Interlagos, and then Abu Dhabi to round things off in the middle of October. Feels like an age away, but that's going to go very, very quickly, I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you can tell this grid, this calendar was designed by league racers because it is... I think all the tracks on there, you can always get some great race. And the only two that I'm a little bit unsure of in terms of tracks I don't like are China and Abu Dhabi. China, I think you don't always get too much battling ground there, but I think at the same time you don't always see a lot of action there, so maybe it's a little bit of an unjust one. But then Abu Dhabi, I like the track, but I'm not a fan of the racing around there. You don't tend to get too much, in my opinion. But I think apart from those two, that calendar is superb, and it's... You know, they're all tracks that you can get good racing out of, but then you've also got a mix of tracks like Austria and Jeddah and Japan, which are all tracks which are made for qualifying rather than just the race itself.
Yeah, very different circuits as well, which I think is great to see. Lots of different challenges. We go from somewhere like Spa through to Bahrain, through to Texas in the space of 3 weeks. That's going to be a really interesting triple header to get into. But I'm delighted to say, everybody, that 18 minutes are on the timing clock. And we can jump over. We can see it there. Qualifying just about to get underway. 22 cars will be taken to the circuit to Catalunya. We're going to be on the ragged edge of performance straight away. I have no doubt about it.
Certainly. And cars are already heading out onto track, wanting to get started early in this qualifying session. And we'll see what they can do. I mean, this track, Barcelona, it's such a short lap in quali. It's around the 1 minute 10s, 1 minute 11s. So you've only got what 10 corners ish in terms of corners that you actually need to do something at. So it means you've got so little places to gain time. So you've just got to be consistent throughout the whole lap, and we'll see how they can get on the first run. I think the first car out is Joris Krozen, who is definitely one of the drivers you're looking at tonight and thinking, well, realistically, he should be in the fight for pole and should be in the fight for the win.
Absolutely. I think what we love about this top level is we've already had a disqualification for Kenny out of the session. We're barely a minute through, and that is not ideal. Liam Stevens also out of it. I think these are going to be drivers starting from the back to give themselves maybe a little bit of a challenge, a bit of fun, of course, going into the social race. And we've already got racing as well on the outlap.
Yes, indeed. Cameron Dowd there overtaking Joris Krozen on the outlap. And one thing to note as well with this track is I think you can go for the double outlap technique. So because it's such a short run and the minimum fuel is enough to get you around for 3 laps, you can afford to go for another outlap just to burn up a little bit of that extra fuel. So we'll see what the strategy is for some of these drivers. Cameron Dades will be the first one to start a lap down to turn 1, but he has invalidated. So I'd imagine that means he's going to go for another outlap on the track. Joris Krozen is heading down to turn 1. We'll keep an eye on him to see what he's going to get up to in that Haas car.
Yes, and remember Active Aero as well for the first time. In a proper sense, these guys are going to be using that Active Aero, very similar to DRS, as we knew for the past 15 years or so, as we come around that long, endlessly long turn 3, barreling up into turn number 4. It's a nice flowing circuit, Catalunya, isn't it? And especially since they got rid of that god-awful chicane a few years ago. This has a nice feel to it. It's allowed racing just to develop that little bit more, and you can get into a really nice flow and a really nice rhythm.
Certainly, and I didn't think that removing one chicane would take a track from a 1 out of 10 to a 10 out of 10. No, that chicane was one of the worst corners ever in motorsport, and I'm glad it's gone. And it also means that going through that final couple of corners now, you can get drivers with a good run down towards turn 1. and then looking to make moves there. Of course, it's a bit different now, being as there's no DRS and it's about having the battery. So I think in the race, we're going to see a lot of drivers through that final sector kind of holding back a little bit and, you know, saving up some battery, then to dart down to turn 1 and try and make a move on some of their rivals. Let's see what Joris Krozen can do as he heads up to the line. It's a 1:12.553 to open up the session.
Very decent start. We'll be looking to try and chip a few tenths away at that straight away. Konstos to second, 12.7. Quintino to now fourth for Sobrino, up to P2. Just half a tenth separating the top two as things stand. Here is Judah Pressakan approaching the final sector as Luca Rapassa lowers the benchmark by 100th of a second. Papaya on top, just ahead of the Haas.
Indeed, and some nice laps there. Luca just pipping ahead of Joris Krozen with a really good lap, and I think he's also one of those drivers on this grid, even though he's not an esports driver and he's not in F1 sim racing, he's one of those that's going to be right up at the top. And Jensen Rosen goes quickest at 1:12.477 from the young Englishman. He goes fastest. Judah Pressakan does jump up into the top 4 there in the Ferrari, so a nice opening lap from him. A couple more coming through to finish their first laps. You got Alex Santana, Gabriel Quintino, then at the bottom half of the top 10. We do see there, I think that was Alejandro Loureiro jumping up to the top 7. And if I'm correct, this will be his first season on PC. So we'll see how he can do as Stephen Vasso jumps up to the top 3. Of course, now part of Veloce Academy, used to be part of VNT himself.
Just 8 milliseconds down on the time set by his teammate just a few moments ago. It is Rosen leading the way. First driver to break that 1:12.5 barrier. We do have Joe Murphy out on the circuit as well, but currently on the intermediate tyre, so not going to be the most competitive of lap times, you would have to say. But straight on the money, these guys right at the sharp end, really tight. Like I said, the two McLarens separated by 8 milliseconds. A further 4 milliseconds back is Krozen in the Haas car as Murphy to the line. What a lap time, a 1:15, a 1:17 I should say, 0.1.
Indeed, yes. I'd imagine he'll go back into the pit lane. I'm sure that in the last social race in PSGL, he also went on a set of the Inters, so that's nothing new for Joe Murphy. We got Lucas Spiesner here on a lap, of course, part of VNT, part of the organisation running this tournament. So we'll see how he can do in the Cadillac. For me, he's jumping around a little bit, so I'm hoping it's not him and it's my end that there is a little bit of lag, but we'll see how he can get on. But I think looking at drivers starting from the back, you've got a lot of your heavy hitters. So Tycho Hardy, of course, part of Merck last season. You've got Tamas Schell, also part of esports last season. You've got Cameron Dowd, who is not part of an esports team at the minute, but certainly could be. Liam Stevens, part of Aston Martin. Then you've got Tony Hietala, who also, I think, should be with an esports team. He's, of course, the defending PSGL PCF2 title holder. So you've got a lot of competitive drivers starting from the back, which could certainly be, one, great for them to show what they can do in race pace and in race intelligence, but also it's great for some of those who aren't normally that high up the field. They get an opportunity to qualify a little bit near the top and see if they can kind of hold on to some of those that are up there already, like Luca and Joris, who we expect to be near the top.
Yeah, will hopefully provide us with some really exciting action, especially in those opening salvos. And like you said, some of the bigger names try to work their way back through. Lucas Bison at P12 on a 1:12.8 as Joe Murphy is the latest to take an early shout in this qualifying session. Just over a third of the way through. And Luca Rapassa back out on circuit, drivers coming out for their second attempt on what you would imagine will be the same set of soft compound tyres. We aren't having a lobby reset in between qualifying and the race, so realistically, especially with this being a social race, there is that tactical advantage, strategical advantage. You want that wild card in your back pocket maybe to keep a set of that brand new soft compound tyres in your arsenal for the race.
Certainly, as we do have Joris Krozen out starting his next lap in qualifying, of course, hugging the line up at turn 3, and it's late on the brakes into turn 4. Well, you say late on the brakes, but it's certainly not anymore because you've got to lift off so early. I'd imagine the same will be a little bit here as well, heading down towards turn 5, lifted off around 150 metres back from the corner, and then it's back on the power. ERS being used here down towards the TV 3-pod chicane. Nice through there, hopping the curb, maybe a little bit too much there for Joris as he heads his way up towards turn 9. Down towards turn 10 we go, of course. Here you can get your straight mode, and then he lifts off just after the 200 metre, but gets on the brake, chucks the car into turn 10, early on the throttle and using a little bit of that battery. That's around 40% left now here through the final couple of corners, so we'll see what he chooses to do. Through towards turn 13, in towards 14, and immediately gets back on the battery, up to the line. We'll see what Joris can improve to. And he can't go quickest. He's around half a tenth away from Jensen Rowson, and that was only 15 thousandths ahead of what he originally set.
Lost time in the final sector. There is a new benchmark time from Sergio Sobrino, first driver into the 12.3s. What's Luca Rapassa got? Well, it's a return to the pit lane. Mistake there in the final sector. You would imagine problems for the lead McLaren at the moment. Tudor Pressacan coming around a long turn 12 at the moment. Front left tyre going to be screaming for a little bit of mercy. Throw the car through 13 and 14. Maybe a tiny lift as you go through the final corner just to line yourself up perfectly. ERS light flashing at the back of the Scarlet Ferrari. It's an improvement by just under a tenth and a half, and Pressacan to the front row.
Indeed, a nice lap there from Tudor. Chucks himself up into the top two. I think the next car we have coming up to the line was going to be Gabriel Quintino, but he's lifted off, so he won't be finding an improvement on that lap time. So I'm not sure who to keep an eye on at the minute. So Jensen Rowson's heading through the final corner to start a lap. And I think we've got Joris coming through again. And I don't know if he's actually on a lap again, because he's once again pushing really hard. And no, Joris is going to head back into the pit lane. So I think the next car coming through might be Steven Vasso in the McLaren.
Up by about half a tenth through the first couple of sectors. Can he continue to find that little bit of time, eke out that extra little bit of performance through 13 and 14 left to negotiate? Two McLaren still 5th and 6th, separated by just 8 milliseconds. And Vaso try and get a leg up on his competitor. Up to the line we go, cutting the beam, improving by 6 milliseconds. So we take 3/4 of the deficit out of Rapassa, but still, as we were with those two Papaya McLarens. And we switch from one Mercedes customer to another, the Alpine, with that Mercedes-Benz engine for the first time since 2015 when it was Lotus, let's not forget. And a bit of an improvement, 200ths of a second for Rowson through the first sector.
Indeed, not too bad here for Jensen. He's up by just shy of a tenth, which could pip him ahead of Sergio Sobrino barely, but would be enough to jump him up to the top step. And has done a really good job so far in this qualifying session. Of course, we did see Alejandro Loureiro jump up into the top 4 in the Williams. Let's see what Jensen can do. Through the final corner, up to the line. Will it be pole position once again? No, misses out slightly. Lost around 40 thousandths in the final sector. But he does jump ahead of Tudor, and he does jump up onto the front row once again. I think, given the fact we'll have at least 2 more laps here for Jensen, depending on, of course, his tyre allocation, his chose, certainly I think it's not over for him in his fight for pole position.
Interesting, isn't it? We've seen quite a lot of drivers up in the first sector, up in the middle sector, and then handing a decent whack of that time back through the final sector. Now, what do you think that's down to? Do you think that's the fact that a lot of these drivers will probably be on used tyres, or could that also be potentially differing ERS strategies for some of the drivers out there, burning a little bit more in the first half of the lap, so they hand a little bit back in the second half?
I don't imagine that drivers will go out again on the same softs, because they burn quite easily on this game. So I'd imagine it's got to be something to do with the ERS strategies, whether it's the fact that they're burning a lot in Sector 2, heading down to Turn 10, and they haven't got much to play with in Sector 3, or vice versa. They may not be using a lot in Sector 2 and saving it all up for the final sector. I could be totally wrong, but I'd imagine it's got to be something to do with ERS strategies, because I don't think the tyres have really got much to go for 2 laps in terms of it being in the optimum window. But we'll keep an eye on it, and we'll see what happens, you know, through the middle and final sector on the next couple of laps, because like we're talking there, very deep into turn 1 and actually hitting the grass on the inside of the first corner. He went right off into the runoffs, and that's not the sort of mistake you want to be happening around this track, going all the way off and into the grass where normally you've got a barrier very close to you.
Yeah, sector 1's so crucial because a lot of the drivers find themselves pretty much in the same ballpark, that 21.6, some of them just a little bit lagging behind in a 21.7. Luca Rapassa improving, but only by 14 milliseconds through Sector 1 and Sector 2. Was a little bit wobbly through the 7-8 chicane in the middle sector. Couple of corners left to negotiate. Been bumped down to P6, 2 milliseconds. Now P7 as his teammate Steven Vaso up to P4, 12.4. But Rapassa into the pits again with just under 6 minutes to go.
Indeed, yeah, not ideal there for Luca. He'll drop down to P7 now in the grid, so of course he'll have a chance to go again. Well, we'll need to definitely try and get something a little bit more competitive on the board compared to what we normally see from him anyway. I mean, Luca's normally one of those where he's up in the top 3 or top 4 for the whole of the session. Not normally do we see him down in 7th place. as we head to the final moments of quali. Joris Krozen only up by a couple of milliseconds again in that middle sector, so it's not looking too good for him at the moment in this qualifying session. Let's see what he can do out to the final corner. Up to the line, goes 5th, so does jump ahead of Alejandro Loureiro, only improving by half a tenth again, so it's only little gains here for Joris. As let's see what Sobrino can do. He goes quickest again, finds 20 thousandths on his previous best, and now has arraigned half a tenth over Jensen Racing in second. So not too bad at all for Sergio Sobrino at the minute. Around, of course, his home circuit.
Found a big improvement in the middle sector. Not a personal best in sector 1 or sector 2, but found about 0.08 of a second, almost a tenth in that middle sector, just to try and eke a quarter of a tenth out of that personal best, lowering the benchmark ever so slightly more as Gabor Konstos, with an interesting line there through turn number 12, was down just a little bit through the first set. I think he's going to be returning to pit row. Now we continue onwards, recharging the battery in that final sector to go again. Seeing a number of drivers doing this, the soft tyres still aren't particularly great, but compared to the 25 cars, they don't wear quite as much. They're not quite as terrible a tyre as they were previously, which means that if you do make a mistake, there is that little bit of leeway and that little bit more of a safety net, not saying it's a big safety net, to catch you if you do make that mistake on your lap.
Yeah, certainly. I think qualifying around here is always quite tricky because you're always so close to the track limits like you are on any track, but it's a fact of, with it being quite a short lap and there's only so little corners that you can really gain time, you've got to push the limits so much, and sometimes it's a fact of being, within a centimetre of going off, and that can sometimes, maybe gain you like half a tenth or something like that. It's so close, but I suppose it's the fact of you either take the risk and you get the reward, or you take the risk and you get nothing back and it's a little bit backfired. I think that's why some of your shorter tracks, so Austria, Brazil here, but if you're, as they call it, a quali merchant, you tend to do quite well, but sometimes it's one of those where if you're not as good in the race but you're just good in quali, we do see drivers drop back down the field. I don't think that's the case for any of these guys at the minute. I think they're all quite good in both quali and the race, but of course we'll see what happens once we head into that. And of course, some of these drivers, yes, might have done a little bit of racing so far with the social races in PSGL and WOR, but some of them might not have done much, so it'll be a good time for them to kind of test what they can do with strategies and battery management. So I do imagine that once we get maybe to the halfway point, we're probably going to see a little bit of gaps throughout the field.
Be a fascinating climax to qualifying and heading straight into the race as well. McLaren versus Williams out there. I believe that is Steven Vaizo, who's just overtaken Alejandro Loureiro. The McLaren currently holding 4th, tight at the top as you would expect. Sabrina with a gap of about 0.06 of a second over Jensen Rosens there. Some interesting goings on there, down into turn number 10 between the McLaren and the Williams. A little bit of lag going. As we get ready for what should be the final flying laps of this qualifying session, Steven Vaizo preparing to try and find just that little bit more out of himself in that McLaren.
Certainly, and I think another driver that I haven't really talked about much is Julian Klaffenbach. Surprised to see him down in 10th at the minute, around 3/10 away from pole position. Not normally where we expect to see him in his Mercedes, so we'll see if he can find some time. He's also beginning a lap, but we'll jump back to the McLaren here of Steven Vaizo, who's making his way through the first sector, and we'll see if he can find any time in the opening part of the lap. Let's have a look here. So he's down by 0.6, so I'd imagine he's going for a double out lap here, so burning off a little bit of that extra fuel to go once again.
We're also doing similar. 5 seconds down on your personal best, not exactly where you want to find yourself. We go back towards Klaffenbach in the Silver Arrow, the Mercedes, keeping it tight through turn number 3, almost dipping a couple of wheels into the grass. We find a little improvement, microscopic improvement of 9 milliseconds to the personal best. Another driver in the 21.6s in that first sector. The only slight downside with coming out early is you might have to contend with a little bit of traffic, although looking at the track map there for the Mercedes driver, should be all fine and dandy with about 5 to 10 seconds margin to that Red Bull just in front. Slightly wide of the apex though, going into turn 7.
Certainly, as we've got a few drivers lifting off through the final sector, and hopefully doesn't get in the way of those that are looking to improve on their current lap time. So just trying to find drivers heading through the final corner to complete a lap. Not quite sure who we've got, because we're at the moment here where I don't know who's on a flying lap and who's on an out lap, but I think most of the drivers now are going to be beginning their final run. Steven Vaizo's just crossed the line, so he'll be going again, and of course he's going to be on the lowest fuel of most drivers, so we'll see how that will pay for him during this one. And then we've got Alex Santana, the last car to begin a lap. And I think Joris Kroes, and well, we saw one of the white cars anyway. I think it was Larry Torki have a mistake through the final corner.
Around in the final corner with the Haas, there was no improvement for Julian Klaffenburg, staying down in position number 10, lost time in the final sector. Rosen is up by a few hundredths through the first and middle sector. Can we take a chunk out of the provisional pole time? Still held by the Red Bull racing car of Sergio Sobrino. Just turned 14, left to negotiate, pinning the throttle out of it. What can the Alpine, the Edstone-based challenger, do? It's an improvement into the 12.3s, but still only second fastest.
A nice lap there from Jensen, and Tudor Prezekan was up by over a tenth, but he's invalidated. That would have been enough to put him onto pole position. What can Sergio Sobrino do? He can't improve on his laps. He's going to have to hope that the drivers behind don't find time. Next we have Joris Kroes, and up to the line, does get himself up into the top three. Then Luca Rapassa's next. He goes sixth at best. Can Stephen Basso try anything with that different strategy of fuel? No. Oh no, he does. He goes up to P3 and matches a time of Jensen Rosen.
Huer improving half a tenth through the first couple of sectors. P7 becomes P6. What about the second Red Bull? Santana at the back up to position number 9 on a 12.6. We wait now for Tulke in the Cadillac through the final couple of corners. Klaffenburg is done in the Mercedes. Just the Cadillac left to try and find an improvement. What can the American-based outfit do? Finds, well, doesn't find time actually, a quarter of a second down. Stays only position 8 as Klaffenburg was wild through the final corner. But it is Red Bull on top. The rampaging ball of Sergio Sobrino taking pole position by 15 milliseconds, with Rosen and Viso setting the exact same time.
Indeed, very close ending to qualifying there. So close between the top 5. I mean, it's not even a tenth between the top 5. So I imagine that's going to be very interesting heading into the race. And seeing so many so close together means that it's not going to be that easy for those at the top of the field to really run away. They're definitely going to have everybody stuck behind them and glued to them heading through the first into the race. I mean, looking through the grid, it will be Sobrino on pole ahead of Jensen Racing in second. You have Stephen Basso in third ahead of Joris Kroes in fourth. Tudor Prezekan running off the top 5. Then we have Loureiro, Rapassa, Tulke, Santana and Chontos the top 10. 14 qualifying from Julian Klaffenbach. Then we have Alexander Dimas, Gabriel Quintino, Lucas Biesner, the ones that set laps. Then we had Murphy, Hardy, Dowd, Gall, Stevens, Holmes, Hietala and Kokeni. Those that didn't choose to set lap times in qualifying. Now, given we have quite a few big names at the bottom of the grid, that's going to make things quite interesting when we're heading to the race, because you've got some of those that are really quick at the front, some of those that are really quick at the back, and then you've got some of those that are normally in the midfield. So that's going to be quite interesting to keep an eye on.
Nice mixed up grid, which is what we love to see. And that charge down into turn number 1, I think it's going to be absolutely fascinating. Long run as well. Opportunity perhaps for drivers to try and make some inroads. As we wait for the strategies to be decided, we'll have a little bit of a break as everybody gets themselves ready for qualifying. I'm sure this could be an absolute barnstormer of a way to kickstart this brand new venture, as we mentioned. If you are just joining us, 33 laps of the Spanish Grand Prix lie in wait. Nathan, expectations, predictions, it's hard to put a finger on it because it was so close in qualifying, but what are you thinking? Where are you leading?
Oh, it's going to be hard. I mean, I think you've got the likes of Joris and Luca, who I think, yes, didn't do quite good in qualifying for their standards, but I think heading into the race, they're probably going to have a bit of an upper hand on some. But Sergio Sobrino, it's his home track. We'll see what he can do as we do have the 5 lights about to come on.
Ready to rock. Short sprint down to the start because we didn't have too many lights, and we are racing for the start of the Ventauri Pro season. And it is Red Bull versus Alpine on the front row. Good launch from Sobrino, but now coming under attack. The McLaren of Vaso right in the thick of the action as well. Looking to the inside was Kroes, and around the outside goes Rosen. Turns to the inside of turn 2. Got to try and keep it pinned to the outside of turn number 3. But I think the Alpine just going to come up short. They're sneaking ahead, just inching ahead is Sergio Sobrino down into turn number 4. Viso still holding third. Head of Kroes and Prezekan. Tulke with a good start in the Alpine up to P6. And there's absolute bedlam right at the back.
Oh my, that was 3 cars off down at turn 4. Cameron Dowds and Joe Murphy caught up in that as well. It's 2 of the Audis right down to the back of the field. And there's lots of battling going on at the front as well. We've got Sobrino who still holds on, but Stephen Basso is looking for a move there on Jensen Racing. And we also saw Luca Rapassa under pressure here from Larry Tulke down towards turn 10 as he He's looking to make some overtakes. In terms of tyres, though, we've got a lot of mediums. The top 8 all on the medium tyre. A couple of hard tyres. And we have one driver, Alexander Dimas, choosing to start on the soft tyres. So we'll see how that goes for him in the early parts of the race. His main thing now will be getting some moves. First 2 or 3 laps, and you'd imagine he's going to be in quite early to change tyres. But it's going to be interesting with strategy here. We've got a big mix of different tyres on the grid.
Punchy start. Viso very quickly got up into position number 2 before Olsen took it back through the 7-8 chicane. Bit of a squeeze as well employed by Pressakan to try and hold the second McLaren of Luca Rapassa at bay, eventually not working out as the Papaya car gets up to position number 5. But Sabrino under pressure. This is where the battery, the ERS games, are going to start to come to the forefront inside of turn 4, both of them lifting and coasting, trying to recharge. And Rosen happy to sit and watch and wait and play the spectators game, but for maybe only a couple more corners as Sabrino hogs the middle of the road, turns to the inside of turn 5, driving the widest Red Bull you've seen, and a big old choo-choo train forming behind.
Certainly, you can see Sergio's plan here is just trying to hold up as much battery as he can. So once we get to the the straight mode sections and the boost modes, he can kind of just pull away or at least keep ahead of those behind on the attack. We have Steven Vasso here looking to maybe close down on Jensen Racing, but can't quite make a move there. Judah Pressakan and Larry Sulky having a squabble as they head their way through in towards turn 13. Larry Sulky there sending Pressakan wide and allows the Williams of Loureiro through. He now jumps up into P7, but it's a run again back down towards turn 1, lap 3 of 33. It's Sabrina that has the lead, but already we can see here Jensen Racing's burning the battery.
Trying to get alongside, get a foothold in the battle. Had a look to the outside. Got to be careful of Viso just behind. Crozen under pressure. There was a dart to the inside. Late dart from Luca Rapassa. Eventually backing out of it as we have our first retiree. One of the 2 Audis, both of them in the war so far. Joe Murphy is done after only a couple of laps. Still Sabrino leading the way. Having to defend hard into turn 4 once again. Deja vu from the previous lap. I think Tudor Pressakan as well will be looking to try and make up for lost time after that. Little bit of a shoulder barge in the battle for P6 and 7. Visor all over the back though of Rosen down the hill into turn 5. Line astern the leading trio with Luca Rapassa. Again, Punchy tries it to the inside of the turn 7-8 chicane. Got to be careful of that big sausage curve, but eventually Rapassa backs out of that one.
Certainly. Dimas there going for a move on Loureiro, nearly sending him off into the barriers at turn 9. He does make his way through and now up into 9th. Gabor Chontos with a brilliant start on the hard tyres, now on the back of his teammate at the moment, Judah Pressakan in the opposite Ferrari. He's made some brilliant moves on the opening laps as Alex Santana goes ahead of Alejandro Loureiro. I'm not sure if he's got some damage, but he's losing a few places here. On this lap is the Spaniard, so we'll see what he can do to kind of work his way back up the field. And once again, Racing's on the attack. He's got the outside line and he's on the grass down towards turn 1. Is he going to go for the move or is he going to hold off? He does go for the move ahead of Sabrino and gets it done into turn 1.
Expert move around the outside despite being put on the grass. Now Viso wants a piece of the action as well through turn 3. That could be the pulse into dropping a couple of places. Watch for the Haas of Crozen as well. Back to the inside of 4. Comes Sabrino in the Red Bull. Rampaging Red Bull down the inside of the attacking McLaren car. Bit of a wobble for Viso. Think a little bit of contact. But that is the pulse to bump down a couple of spots from 2nd to 3rd after starting the lap in the lead.
Indeed, and a couple of moves further back as well. Klappenbach there just trying to keep ahead of Gabriel Quintino. Quintino goes around the outside into the chicane and makes a superb overtake ahead of the Mercedes, who's definitely not had a good start in this race. And closely behind him is Tamas Gal, of course former RG teammate, as Luca Rapassa has got the move done ahead of Joris Crozen, but Joris has managed to keep it ahead for now, unless Luca goes to the inside, which he does do. Joris is going to have to try and hang it around the outside, but Luca gets that one done.
Elbows out racing. As Luca Rapassa battles through to move up to P4 at the expense of the Haas of Crozen. Caught napping, pocket pinched into turn number 10, but the Ferrari-powered Haas, the American Dream, perhaps thinking about a rebuff. A reassault, down into turn 1. It's Rapassa potentially on the move once again. Sabrino under significant pressure under the cosh from both McLarens, getting it from absolutely all angles at this stage. Rapassa now potentially on the back foot after getting slightly bulked through turns 1 and turns 2. Through turn 3, there's the Haas of Crozen. The 2 Scarlet Ferraris do battle as well. Konstos to the inside. Pressakan the long way around on the outside of turn 4. Hard tyres for Konstos. Medium tyres for Pressakan. Again, Luca Rapassa elbows out. Not just razor blades, he's got daggers on the elbows of that McLaren car. Sabrina's going to be given the cold shoulder on the outside. Luca Rapassa again muscling his way through.
Indeed, and it's not gone too well, has it, for Sergio Sobrino? Started on pole, he got overtaken by Jensen Racing, and since then he hasn't quite been able to hold on at all. He's down to fourth and could be under pressure here from Crozen, as that's Lauritolki to the outside in the Cadillac, touches some of the grass, goes wide, has a half spin and collects Junior Pressacan, and then also Gabel Chontos has to go off onto the runoff, and that was certainly not ideal for Lauritolki and not ideal for the two Ferraris there who nearly got themselves involved, as here's Loureiro through the final corner looking to make a move ahead of Gabel Chontos, who's on the hard tyres. Loureiro on the mediums. It's going to be side by side down towards turn number 1. Let's see, is there going to be a move here for the Williams, who's still burning the battery later on the brakes compared to Chontos, but he could be trying to save a little bit more of that battery to use it through this next part of the lap. But Loureiro really wanted to get on the attack here. Josh Crozen's closing in on the back of Sobrino further ahead.
Oh, Santana very wide there. Migrating host, that's not good news at all. I think Santana's had a disconnection issue there. The AI is going to be getting involved on that one. Maybe a game crashes round, goes the Haas. That's Gal. A little bit of contact, I think, with one of the Mercedes. And the Haas thrown out of contention there. Maybe just caught up. Yes, Tico Hardy it was. Probably everybody just balked by the AI, which is going a little bit slowly, it has to be said. Heitler under pressure. I think that's Kaneki to the inside of turn 7. Contact again. Tried to lunge it to the inside. Door was slammed in his face. Half spin and sent back down into P20.
Let's hope there's no desync issues, because I think there was last night in PSGL when the host disconnected there. So I'd imagine all is looking good for now, but we'll have to wait and see if there is any issues, as Liam Stevens now dispatches the AI car of Alex Santana. Then looking back ahead at the front of the field, Stephen Basso there giving a bit of a wag there on his wheel. I don't know if that's saying to Jensen, I'm not going to overtake, I'm going to stay behind, but that looks like it was a bit of a coordinated move there to kind of give a message to the car ahead, or maybe the car behind him just saying, yep, I'll stick behind, don't worry, I'll stay in P2 for now. As we keep an eye on battles, the grid is still really close. I mean, everybody down to 20th is in the train. I mean, it was in within a second of each other, but of course nobody can really make any moves at the minute. It's so difficult to get an overtake pulled off here. So I think this is one of those situations where if you're stuck in a train like this, you could see some drivers maybe go and pit in a little bit early to get an undercut, to get some free air.
Just settling down, as you said there. There was a chance maybe for Pressacan. It was close, right up on the haunches of Sobrino into the braking zone of turn 1. Didn't fancy it though, happy to hold station in P5. Rosal, your race leader, ahead of the two McLarens, Aviso and Rapassa. Pole sitter Sobrino bumped down to 4th halfway around lap 7. Santana back in the session, damage done though for the second Red Bull, now P20 and disembarked from the 1 second window train. Heitler also a break forming there in P16, got a penalty courtesy of some contact after the scuffles when the Red Bull disconnected, but this could be Sobrino under significant pressure again to try and cling onto another spot.
Indeed, as we head back down towards turn 1, a couple of battles happening here, and Junior Pressacan giving a bit of a tap there to the rear of that Red Bull as they head their way through the first couple of corners. And Sobrino just about holds on to that P4 for now, but that could have been a very different story for those two heading down towards turn 1. I have noticed though, Alexander Dimas has dropped outside the 1 second. Gabel Chontos goes past him, but of course for a moment there that was put in risk of Gabel Chontos and those behind not getting that overtake mode as Gabriel Quintino goes for the send. And I'm starting to think here that the soft and the mediums are starting to become a little bit more vulnerable now compared to the hards, as we are seeing a few of them starting to drop back into the likes of Chontos and Quintino and Paffenbach as well. So we'll keep an eye on the mediums and see how they're lasting up, as closing down on Pressacan, but no move made there.
Dimas definitely struggling for traction, grappling for grip on those very, very subpar soft compound tyres. 7 laps, almost 8 laps completed. You would expect we'll be into the pits fairly shortly. Loureiro as well was a little bit wild, a little bit lively with the loud pedal coming through turn number 5. But look at this out in front, the gap closing up once again as Vaso cruises up to the back of Rosen through the final corner, moving out to the middle of the circuit. Not looking too intent on making the move, but does eventually cruise past with a helping hand of a straight mode. And of course that little bit of battery. And the lead changes hands for the first time in a little while. Stephen Viso now leading from Jensen Rosen. The passer still happy to second third.
Indeed, and of course Jensen now has to be careful from Luca Rapassa, because of course there's no overtake mode for Jensen. There will be for Luca Rapassa and those behind. So Jensen on this lap will be a little bit vulnerable to Stephen Vasso. So we'll just keep an eye here on what Jensen can do to hold on, as Gabriel Quintino making the move ahead of Alexander Dimas, who of course is on those old worn soft tyres. And just look at the time that Gabriel's lost to those ahead. 1.4 seconds down now. He's got to get back within a second, so he can stick with that leading train of those in the top 8, and also pull those behind him who are on the hards and some of those on the mediums up with him as well. The gap's 1.2 now. So with those lifting off, he might get a chance to just get in the set inside the 1 second by the time they head through the final corner. As we head through with the leaders, there's a nice, decent gap now, 6/10 for the advantage of Steven Vasso. Of course, Luca Rapassa's dropped back slightly as well, and now Gino Pressacan once more is on the attack of Sergio Sobrino down to turn 1.
Luera into the pits, was tumbling, lost 5 places on the previous lap. Pressacan has a little look to the inside as Luera throws in the towel after 9 laps. Really tight here. Rapassa's got to be careful, Sobrino's got to be careful as well. Can't be too passive because Pressacan, look at the flash of Scarlet in the rearview mirrors of that Red Bull racing car. Menacingly, you have to say, as they run through turn number 4. Still Vaso leading away from Rosen. Rapassa, Sobrino the pulse to Pressacan, looks to the inside of turn number 5. Is he giving the timer down the inside? Just enough space as he slides the Ferrari alongside. It's a battle of Scuderia versus the rampaging Bull inside of turn 7 now, and Pressacan gets the move done. Textbook work to push the pole sitter down a further spot. Crozen wants a piece of the action through the fast turn 9 as well. He'd be a brave man to make a move through that corner.
Yeah, some great work there by Pressacan as well. The first thing he did, as soon as he got ahead of Sobrino, he's blocked off his lap through for the undercut, so he could keep that P4. Some nice work from the Romanian driver. As we do see, Scott Holmes jump up into P12, and you'd imagine that Alexander Dimas will call it quits on these soft tyres in the next couple of laps. Surely, as all, Larry Talker there just tapping the back of Joris Crozen and the Haas, nearly going for a slide in the final corner. Very lucky there for Joris Crozen to hold on. Larry Talker is also under pressure here from Gabor Chontos into the first corner. And he's come close a couple of times to Larry Talker to a couple of race-ended incidents. He's got to be a little bit careful on those medium tyres at the moment, but I don't think he'll be holding on for P7 for much longer, because already Gabor Chontos is looking to get on the attack, and of course with him being on the hards, he's the first of that alternate strategy, so we'll see how he can do with that.
2 Ferraris bookending what is now a secondary chasing peloton, but Chonstos to the outside of turn number 5, has to go the long way round. Taluki trying to give the space, and actually very easily done there on the exit for the Ferrari. Good move from Chonstos using those hard compound tyres to his advantage. Push the Cadillac down a further spot. Pressacan at one stage was outside of 1 second to Rapassa in front. Now putting Sobrino under pressure to the inside of turn number 10. Luca Rapassa has a little look. Fastest lap goes to the Aston Martin of Tony Heitler down in position number 20. All over the back of Rosen is Luca Rapassa here. Remember, these two McLarens, strategy-wise, can't pit on the same lap courtesy of them being teammates. So Rapassa's got to try and think ahead here, being the second McLaren in the train.
Certainly, that's going to be something that's going to be a little bit frustrating for Rapassa later on. You'd imagine at some point he might want to get ahead of Stephen and, you know, dictate when he can pit rather than Stephen dictating when the McLarens can pit, as Gabriel Quintino makes a move ahead of Julian Klappenbach. And given they're both outside the 1 second to Larry Torquay and 1 second away from the boost mode, those two will probably work together here to try and bring that gap down, a little bit like what we saw with the DRS back in the day, using that together to work your way closer to those further up the field. And Dimas now down to 14th. You'd imagine he's got to be in soon. Those tyres are probably not far away from being in puncture territory. 11 laps on a soft tyre is quite a long way to go. Someone's done a good job to get them there, that's for sure. As we continue our way on once again, and of course looking up at the top drivers in the field, Steven Vasso at half battery, Rosen and Rapassa at around 3/4 of the battery they have to use. So both of them very consistent on how much they're using and where they're saving it up. So it's just difficult for Rapassa to make a move because he's doing the exact same thing as what Jensen Racing's doing.
Which is why we've seen Rapassa trying to get a little bit creative, those moves into turn 5, and they're trying to get a good run through 6 into the 7-8 chicane. Also saw it a couple of laps ago into turn 10. They'll duck to the inside, bobbing, ducking and weaving underneath the rear wing of the Alpine. Rosen less than 2/10, less than a tenth now off the back of Steven Vaso. Does the lead change hand for the first time in 5 laps? Yes, it does. Easy as you like. Vaso doesn't fight it. Rosen back up into the lead of this race, pushing the lead McLaren down to second. Pressakan still right in the thick of this battle as well. Sabrino, Krozen, Komstos and Toluki, your top 8 in this lead train. Rapasa all over the back of his teammate. Little look, slides the McLaren alongside his teammate through turn number 4. I think Varzo's just got the high road on the outside, but Rapasa almost squeezed onto the grass, searching for the smallest of opportunities, the smallest of gaps to slide a McLaren, but his teammate throws the bottle in front. It's a spin out of turn 5 for Varzo. Big blunder there as he's going backwards down the hill.
There was a bit of contact between the two, but Vaso was already going rain by the time Luca kind of finished the job for him. But yeah, I think Luca's also lucky not to get damaged there, because that could have been a different story. But of course, it now means that at least he's going to be the lead McLaren on the pit stop, so we can at least decide when to and when not to pits. Can Luca Rapasa. It does promote Tudor Pressakan up into the podium spots. A good race from him so far in the Ferrari, and it just does bring Sabrino and Krozen back up into the top 5 of this race. But also, Jensen Rosen's got a nice healthy gap at the minute ahead of Luca Rapasa, but he's not going to make that much of an inroad because he's also got a little bit of battery to use himself, so it should allow Luca Rapasa to close in, because we do have a couple of pit stops. Alexander Dimas off of those old soft tyres, and then also Larry Sulky, who was running up in the top 7.
Big wobble for Rapasa coming out of turn number 2, almost perpendicular to the circuit. Presscan wasn't quite close enough to capitalise on a little error there for Rapasa, who has had to burn a little bit of battery to get back within the 1 second window of Rosen. That's Hightail off the road a lap down, destroying the polystyrene markers on the right-hand side of screen. But Rapasa looking a little bit ragged in the last 60 seconds or so, since his teammate dropped it in front of him coming out of turn number 5 on the previous lap. Has just got himself back to within a comfortable range of Jensen Rosen in the battle for first and second. And as we saw on the previous lap, with Tukey and the Cadillac coming in, we are going to be getting towards the point where these drivers will be thinking on the mediums about getting some new boots on.
Indeed, and Tony Hirdal has taken a very weird line through the circuit, has cut the chicane completely, now weaving down to turn 10. I think he knows his race is done and dusted. But of course, it doesn't matter what he can do, because you can't cause a safety car in this. No safety cars can be caused. They're turned off as the leaders come in. Sabrino stays out, so does Chantos, of course. He would on those hards, but many of the medium runners coming in. It's going to be interesting to see who's going to be wearing the back-end order once we see Sabrino in, I'd imagine, next lap around.
And Rapasa was incredibly late to dive into the pits, going across the grass there as Varzo's retired in the pits. Unfortunate one for Steven Varzo, having a great race in the early stages, but that little error coming through turn 5, ending his day slightly early. We return to Rosen, who's just coming out of the pits. Where is the Cadillac of Tulki? P13 has just about muscled their way through ahead of the Ferrari of Presscan. He gets all out of shape coming out of turn number 2. Got to be careful of Krozen just behind as well. They've allowed Luca Rapasa and Rosen to scamper off into the distance to the tune of a second and a half. Back to the inside of turn 4 goes Tudor Pressakan. Larry Tulki has to hold it all the way around the outside. Got slightly better, slightly more warm, slightly more energy into those hard compound tyres with that 1 lap undercut, and has got the track position to boot as well.
Some great work there by Larry Sulky to get ahead of Tudor Pressakan and also hold on, as we do have Joris Krozen here also all over the back of Tudor Pressakan, so he's looking to get on the attack. Is the Dutchman as we head down towards turn 10. Oh, that was very close there for Joris Krozen. The closing speed so much higher for him compared to Pressakan, but he does get the move done in the end. Goes up into 14th place. Of course, that's going to be net 4th for him. Of course, Larry Sulky is net 3rd, but look how well this has worked out for Rosen and Rapasa. They've got a 2-second gap ahead of everybody else behind, so realistically these two should run away from this now. With this here, they should run away and probably get first and second, depending on what the hard medium strategy looks like, because I don't think there's any way really that we're going to see those further back really closing on that gap as long as they work together well and don't battle too much.
Brino out of the pits, just ahead of Krozen and Presscan, who are side by side into turn 1. Both of them now ahead of the Cadillac of Tulki, who, as you saw, was recharging heavily on the previous lap into turn number 10, causing that little concertina effect between the Haas and the Ferrari just behind. Sabrino has done an okay job of bridging the gap between the secondary group and the two that have scampered off in front of Rosen and Rapasa, but that Red Bull has to try somehow claw those extra couple of tenths to get within the 1 second of Luca Rapasa, get that extra overtake boost mode available, and really recouple this train back together.
Indeed, and surprisingly, Rapasa and Rosen aren't using all the battery. I thought they'd be dumping quite a little bit here to keep breaking away from Sergio Sobrino, but they've saved a bit of backspin. It's allowed Sobrino to possibly close in here and maybe get back within that 1 second and turn away that scare that Crozon and Presicam would have had, knowing that they were 2 seconds away from the leaders, as we did see there once again. Quintino and Klaffenbach switching places, but of course, for those starting on the hards, it's a big advantage for Gabor Chontos, who has a 2.9 second lead over the rest of those that opted to start on the hard tyres. So we'll see what he can do working with that strategy. But Sobrino has got comfortably back within a second of Luca Rapassa, so he does enter that race and now back into third. So he did drop out the podium and now he's back in it. But looking at the gaps here, Rosen to Chontos, he's around 17 seconds. So if Gabor's not out for that much longer, I don't think he'll come out that far behind Jensen Racing. It might be maybe 3 or 4 seconds here.
Big chance. Excellent stint, you have to say it's been for Gabor Chontos. 3 seconds almost clear of that next group that are yet to stop. Scott Holmes in there on the medium tyres, hasn't pitted yet so far. Could be in a good position going into the back end of the race as well. Sergio Sobrino now just starting to fall away a little bit more in the middle sector. Is this the time that Rosen and Rapassa start to turn the afterburners on, as Scott Holmes does dive into the pits to lay to rest those medium compound tyres and go for the hard tyres to the end of the race? Can the pole sitter just cling onto the coattails for the next few laps of Rosen, of Rapassa in front? No traffic to worry about or contend with. 10 seconds to Alex Santana down the road, a little bit less actually, 10 seconds to Kenny. It's actually 3.5 seconds to Santana, who of course had that disconnection earlier on. Rapassa still very happy to play the spectators game at this stage. This is when we're just sort of settling into that rhythm now. Don't expect to see too many of the cards in the pack shuffling as the aces battle right at the front of this lead group until we get to that lap 30 mark, and then things might just start to reshuffle as people try and make those late lunges and those late race charges through the field.
Certainly. I think the interesting part will be once the likes of Jensen and Luca and Sergio catch up to those that are still on the hards. I mean, depending on how long they stay out, it might be a little bit interesting when they have to try and work their way through those on that what will be a very much slower tyre at the minute. So, I mean, Jensen's brought that gap down to 2.5 seconds nearly to Santana. I know it's a lapped car, but it's only around 7 seconds back from Tamas Kenny, who was on. He was in the session and on that hard tyre train as Lucas Beeson's in very early for the Cadillac. After the hard tyres, he'll be switching on to a set of the mediums, and the first to bite of all those that started on the hardest compound of tyre.
Raffenbach through on Quintino. These two have been trading blows and trading places in the past few laps. It's the Mercedes worst car back up into second on the road ahead of the Mercedes customer, with Tico Hardy and Liam Stevens in that little group as well. Disconnected 3.5 seconds. Further back is Kokeni, then is Santana, then you have the leaders that have pitted so far: Rosen, Rapassa, Sobrino, Crozon, Presicam and Tulki at the back. Then you've got Dimas, who remember starting on those soft compound tyres. The undercut hasn't necessarily worked. 5 laps, pretty much did the same stint on softs that the leaders did on the mediums. The problem was didn't necessarily work. Big fall off of pace, big drop off as he hit the cliff in those final few laps before the pit stops. He came in and now 7.5 seconds off the back of the leaders, with potentially very feisty looking Scott Holmes to deal with, who's only just come out of pit road on a brand new set.
Certainly, 4-lap advantage Scott Holmes has over Dimas and Tulki, so we'll see if he can start to make any inroads on some of those drivers further ahead, as Chontos is in. So is Gabriel Quintino. So 2 of the hard tyre drivers are making the bike to pits. Klaffenbach and Hardy stay out, along with Liam Stevens. Alex Santana's AI continues on, and also Tamas Kenny joining those in the pit lane. So 3 cars remain on track on the hards, because Dimas's car will probably stay out for a lot longer, being as it's an AI. But Jensen Rosen's caught up very quickly. Let's hope it doesn't get in the way of him, because that would not be ideal for the Alpine.
As the leaders catch up to the Red Bull of Santana. Rosen, Rapassa, Sobrino, Crozon, Prescan and Tulki, with Konstos only 3 seconds back down the road on brand new medium tyres. 14-lap sprint to the flag for the Scarlet Ferrari on the bright yellow medium striped rubber. Yellow striped medium rubber, long way around this. And that could be a fascinating little duel to the end of the race, trying to pick them off one by one by one by one. This game is slightly easier to work your way through the traffic than 25, just because the The dirty air isn't quite as strong, but then that's counterbalanced, of course, by the fact that the ERS strategies are fairly similar. So you'd imagine for Konstos, this is going to be all down to that tyre offset that he's built up.
Yeah, definitely. I think he should fly through on some of these cars. Maybe in around 8 or 9 laps it will become difficult once his tyres get worn, but for now he's going to have such an advantage on Larry Torquay and those ahead. I mean, all the cars now from Jensen Racing down to Larry Torquay are in the same train, so it'll be about getting through on the first couple, who are normally the slower ones in the train. Then, of course, once you get further ahead, that's when it's got to be a lot more harder to make moves. I think Presican and Torquay should be quite easy for Jontos, but Crozen and those ahead is going to be more of a challenge, and we'll just have to see what he can do. And his game will be that tyre offset and being on the softer compounded tyre. That will be what he's holding on to in terms of moving forward in this race. I think given the strategies and the way it works, even once his tyres start to drop off and he's maybe a little bit slower, I think he'll probably still hold on to whatever position he's in because of the battery and making it so difficult for anyone to overtake him. So I think either way he's going to be finishing higher than where he is. It's just a bit of a gamble of where.
Can he get onto the podium? That's a potential peak, perhaps, for Chonstos to try and work their way through the traffic. Was a second quicker on the previous lap, only taken about 3/10 out of Tilke at the back of the train on this lap so far. Maybe some interesting ERS strategies going on there. You could see that Gross, I think it was really close to the back of Sabrina through turn 10. Same going for Presican in the lead Ferrari. Konstos, you could just see in the background of shot there, but through the leaders come, through the penultimate and then the final corners. Klaffenborg and Stevens head to the pit lane, and Rosen will move back up into the overall lead of the race, ahead of Luca Ripassa, who for the past 10 laps has been very, very happy to sit in position number 2 in this train. Little look to the inside for Presican on Crozen, and crucially for Chonstos' race, the Cadillac of Tilke just hovering, lingering on the potential precipice of falling out of the 1 second window of Presican in front. Good run through turns 1 and 2 to get a couple of tenths back, but that Cadillac in particular should be fairly straightforward for Chonstos to pick off, despite only being a couple of tenths past her on the previous lap. Hold that thought, because that's Presican to the inside, a little bit of contact with the Haas of Crozen. World's worst camera angle, thank you gamers. We come out of turn number 5, down the hill through 6 and into 7 and 8. The Ferrari of Presican is through.
That was an aggressive move from Tudor, really aggressive. They made contact then into turn 4. I'd imagine if that was in a league race, they'd probably have the shoes involved there, and I think he just let Joris back through. It didn't look like much of a battle, but Joris Crozen goes back into 4th, but that allows Larry Torquay to get back involved. He was around 9 tenths back. He's now only 2.5 tenths back and is already on the back of Tudor Presican, so we'll see what he could do. Maybe he can make a late charge here and get himself back up into the top 5, but Gabor Chontos is closing in once again. 1.3 seconds is the gap between him and the others, and considering he's got no boost mode, he's done a great job of bringing that gap down quite quickly.
Presican has to go defensive into turn 1. The Cadillac on the move and in the groove to the outside of turn 1, turns the inside of 2, but getting all caught up over the curve there in the second corner. Just puts the Cadillac of Tilke off kilter and allows Presican to hold on to P5 for the time being. And there, for the first time, Konstos dips below 1 second to the Cadillac in front. It is now a 7-car train with the Ferrari right at the back, very much so on the best rubber.
Certainly, we'll see what he can do now. He should be flying through the field, I'd imagine, at least past Torquay. Yeah, that gap now down to just 0.6 of a second. Of course, Gabriel Quintino hasn't gained much, but he hasn't lost much. The gap between Gabor Chontos and Quintino was around 4 seconds when they exited the pits. 3 laps later, it is the exact same, just over 4.1 seconds. So a nice job by Quintino and those behind. It's just they're a little bit too far back at the minute to really make inroads and close in on that leading pack. But I think next lap around, we might see the first opportunity for Chontos to have a go at making an overtake here and getting himself up into the top 6.
And for the 2 leaders, Rosen and Ripassa in particular, how worried do you think they'll be about Chonstos at the back? Because Ripassa has a little look to the inside, dangles the nose into turn 1, but braking a little bit early, lifting off a little bit earlier to recharge the battery, and once again happy to stay in second as Liam Stevens disposed of Tico Hardy in the battle for 9th and 10th. But for the Alpine and the McLaren, how worried do you think they'll be about the pace and the potential pace of Chonstos?
No, I don't think they need to be too worried, because I think at the minute Chontos is gaining in, but it's not like he's gaining in loads. Now he's on the back of Larry Torquay. I'd imagine those two could be safe up at the front, and I think it depends mainly on if those behind can catch up. If Quintino, Stevens and Hardy can get back with Chontos in the next couple of laps, maybe they're going to have to be a little bit more worried because there'll be a group of them charging through. But at the minute, I don't think Chontos can get himself up into the top 2. Maybe he can get himself ahead of Crozen, but then that might be the max for him, because one thing to note as well is that Larry Sulky's got a lap older tyre than those ahead. So that's going to be something that, you know, could still play a game, given that it's a little bit harder to get past Sulky, who's got older tyres than those ahead. So just keep an eye here. But Chontos is bringing the gap down. He just can't quite get ahead of Sulky here. He's not gaining enough in the corners at the minute to really pose a challenge. Here's Luca Rapassa.
Be careful, Sabrina, who's just hovering, waiting maybe to pick up the scraps. Rapassa to the inside of turn number 1. Rosen went defensive, but ain't no stopping that Papaya McLaren car. And Luca Rapassa, for the first time, leads the Spanish Grand Prix. Rosen still tucked right up underneath the rear wing of the McLaren through turn number 3. Will we see a rebuff into turn 4? Sabrina hovers to the inside, has a little duck over to the middle of the road, just to fire a bit of a warning shot to Rosen, saying, hey, you can't be too passive here, mate, because as the pole sitter, I've got some pretty darn decent pace just at the back. Is that Chonstos? Yes, it is. To the inside of turn number 5. That is 1 down. I say that sliding slightly wide, but yes, 1 down. The Cadillac now in the back pocket of the second Ferrari. How much more progress can we make in the remaining 8 or 9 laps?
The guys at the front now need to be careful when battling, because if they keep battling hard like they are at the minute, that's going to allow Chontos to took down the time at the minute. I mean, you can see there, Sabrina, all over the back of Jensen Racing, who, of course, on this lap doesn't have the boost mode, whereas Sabrina and Rapassa have. So, of course, Racing's just got to be a little bit careful on this lap. He will have the boost mode or the overtake mode. There's so many names. He'll have that activated again now, down towards turn 1, and we'll see whether he chooses to make the move or chooses to stick behind the back of the McLaren. He's got around 20% battery into turn 1. And he backs off because he knows that he's got Sabrino there, so he couldn't back off too early, but he didn't want to make the move.
Almost felt like a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation there for Rosen, with Sabrina so close on the run down into turn number 1. Rapassa still holds this lead on lap 26. We'll get a couple of laps to go from Rosen, who was the leader for probably 15 laps or so after moving through on Vazo, who made a mistake before the first round. Stop slide for Sabrina coming out of turn number 5. Crozen in P5 just behind, or P4 I should say. Then the 2 Ferraris, Pressacan and Chonstos on brand new, less new now, medium compound tyres. And if you are constant, where are you looking at? Because it's so difficult to try and get that overlap, get that speed differential because of the way the battery works. What parts of the circuit are you looking at that maybe you can be a little bit creative, and maybe you can just down with the nose, throw the carrot to the inside, and give yourself a 50-50 chance of making up a place?
I think depending on his battery usage, turn 5 seems like a bit of an unorthodox place to make a move, but you've got a short run down to turn 4, then a short run down to turn 5. So if you play your battery right, you probably can get a move done there when other drivers are trying to save up the battery. As we head our way back down to turn 1, and Chontos is gaining in, but not enough to really think about making a move. Further ahead, we saw that gap there go down to around 2 tenths, separated Rapassa, Rosen and Sabino, but nobody hungry to make a move. Crozen, however, was bringing that gap down, but gets a slightly worse line through turn 3 and drops back into turn 4. Let's see, can Chontos get the move down to turn 5 here? He's on the outside here of Pressacan. He's going to have to send it all the way around, and I think, depending on his exit, he might just about get it done there.
I wonder if Pressacan just tapped the back of Crozen. Bit of a wobble there for the now second Ferrari. The Ferrari on the hard compound tyres. Bade adieu in the back of the P5 and 6 as Chontos through up into the top 5 and now can set his sights on the Haas of Crozen in front. And Sabrino as well, really been making Rosen think about what to do into turn number 1 in regards to that battle with Luca Rapassa, who's just put a little bit of space between himself and the group on this lap alone. 7/10 of a second, maybe just trying to put a bit of a marker down, see, okay, this is the pace I've got, I'm going to burn a little bit more ERS. Who wants to come with me, lads? Just mix it up a little bit.
Now we've got another run down to turn 1. What can Chontos do here? He's 2.5 tenths back at the moment. He's not really gaining that much now, but I think he's more, you know, keeping an eye on going down to turn 5. That's where he made the moves ahead of both Pressacan and Tulke. But imagine the same could be here. Got to go past Joris Crozen, who, of course, it's not an easy driver to pass, so it's going to be a lot of work needed for him as Liam Stevens, looking to make a move ahead of Quintana, who goes into the barriers at turn 2 exit, has a bit of damage on his front wing, and, well, that is not the way he'd want to be ending this race. Done a great job all race long of doing what he can on the hard to medium strategy, and now drops to the back.
Gloves well and truly off at this stage. It's interesting watching Sabrino through turn 3. Takes a really wide line, almost a late apex. Yes, it's a really long right hand, but almost Crozen's eyes turn to dinner plates a little bit because Sabrino is very late in ducking back over to the tight line on the inside. Crozen takes a decent chunk of time out of the Red Bull. Little look to the inside of turn 10 for Pressacan. Wasn't close enough to slide the Ferrari up alongside his teammate. There we get a foot on in the battle for 5th and 6th, trying to return the favour from a few laps ago. Luca Rapassa still 7/10 clear as he was at the end of the previous lap. But look at this, Jostos's really close to the back of Crozen through the penultimate corner. Feels like it's only a matter of time now.
Yeah, definitely, but it just seems like on this occasion here, Crozen was slow through the final corner, but it's because he built up all his battery. Both of them had loads of batteries into turn 1, and it just negated any chance of Chantos gaining in because they both had so much to use. Liam Stevens and Gabriel Quintino retire from this race. Then in 15th and 16th, not being the best race for them in terms of what's happened, but before that it wasn't going too bad. Both were running up in the top 10 as we head our way back down towards turn 5. As that's going to be Tudor Pressacan going back for the send on Gabor Chantos.
Who would have seen this coming? Scarlet Civil War through 6. They go eyeball to the inside, picking up another spot potentially is Pressacan, pocket pinching the Haas of Crozen to the outside of turn 9. Now will there be enough space for the pair of them to try and dance through the high-speed corner? The answer is a firm no as Pressacan falls off the road. The Haas dropping time to the trio in front. Chantos back in the battle as well to the outside of turn number 10. Pressacan elbows out, keeps P5. Was maybe a little bit too optimistic trying to hurl it around the outside of turn 9.
Exit of turn 9, I think, was Joris's way of saying move. You're not having the place, because that was cheeky from Tudor Pressacan. If that stuck, that would have been move of the race for sure. Of course, managed to dart ahead of Gabor Chantos, and maybe Joris thought it was Gabor behind him and not Tudor, because he just flew past him, didn't he? He did not have any sort of defence there, did Crozen into turn 7. But in the end, he managed to hold on. But that is not what we expected to see. Tudor Pressacan getting back ahead of Gabor Chantos. It just seemed like he waited that, little bit more laps to build up the battery, go for the move, and now Gabor Chantos is back on the attack of Tudor Pressacan.
Ferrari's continuing to put on a show. The two prancing horses battling hard over 5th and 6th. On this occasion, once again, Pressacan comfortable in that position. Just feels like a bit of a sparring match between these two at the moment. Box office battles in Barcelona. We've got 3.5 laps to go. Luca Rapassa, the past 3 or 4, has felt fairly comfortable out in front, ahead of Jensen Rosen and Sergio Sabrino at the pole sitter. But it's kicking off behind Crozen, under pressure from the Ferraris on the previous lap. Now with a little bit of breathing room to the scarlet and white cars, with Tulki still right in the thick of that battle for 5th, 6th and 7th also.
Indeed, yeah, it's just starting to get a little bit more spicy there, I reckon. We've had a few laps of a bit of a lull period, and now things should hopefully get a little bit more interesting. You'd imagine there that Jensen's going to try and catch up to Luca, because Luca's starting to fly up a little bit here, and Jensen's got to be careful not to lose that 1 second gap. But of course he can't burn all the battery as Gabor Chantos makes a move back ahead of Tudor Pressacan. But of course, Jensen Rosen can't sit there and burn all his battery now, trying to keep up with Luca, because as soon as he burns it, Luca saves it all and pulls away. So he's got to be very careful with what he does here, is Jensen, to hold on to the back of Luca and try and make an attack. But 2 laps to go. Luca's looking very comfortable at the moment, isn't he? And got big enough of a gap where the overtake mode isn't going to really give Jensen 7/10 of an advantage.
Looks like he's got this one covered if all stays well and no major maladies before the McLaren in the final 2.5 laps. It's Sabrino that's punchier out of that leading group of 3 though, just keeping Rosen very much on his toes as they go through turn 9. Crozen dropping a little bit of time as the top 3 really starting to extend their legs now. And with just over a couple of laps to go, the battle to be crowned the King of Spain, the first social race, the first chapter to be written. Ventauri Pro Series about to be seen. Put pen to paper on that first winner. Crozen now 9/10 of a second off the back of Sabrino. Looks like it's going to be this 3 battling for the spots on the podium. It's actually Pressacan really struggling as well. Dropped a lot of time to Chantos, and actually under big pressure from Tulki. Is this the move perhaps from Sabrino? Gaining all the time up to the back of Rosen. Little wiggle to the inside, but thinks better of it.
In terms of batteries now, we've got 65% for Rapassa, 30% and 30% for both Rosen and Sabrino. So at the moment, this is looking very good for Luca Rapassa. So we've just got to wait and see if there's anything that Jensen's got in his back pocket he can use, as Alex Santana And Lucas Beast now having a battle. The two VNT teammates put it on a show through the first couple of corners. And Santana gets ahead, whether that's his AI or not, because that seems very quick for an AI, I've got to say. But those two continue battling. And then we look back up the front of the Crozon's dropped away heavily from the leaders. But I think now he knows, right, I'm not within a second of Sabrina. I've not got boost mode. I think now he's focusing more on trying to hold that battery and try and keep as much as he can as Chontos there closing in. And you'd imagine it'll be an easy move down to turn one. Better tyres, more battery, and that boost mode to use to his advantage as we head shortly onto one more lap. Rapasa looks like he's got this more than covered and nearly breaks at 1 second to Jensen Rayson.
Gross is going to be under the cosh here, under the microscope as they start lap 33 of 33. Rapasa should have it covered. All the way to the inside goes the Alpine versus the Pulsar. These two started on the front row. Little look to the inside. Sabrina doesn't have the overspeed, but Rosen slightly wide of the apex through turn number 1. Is the Alpine, the Enstone-based outfit, going to be vulnerable? Sabrina looking every which way to find the space. Really tight line, the Tiger line through 3 for Rosen, but Sabrina as yet can't make the move.
There's still one chance because somehow Rayson didn't get the overtake mode on the last lap. So this is a big opportunity now for Sabrina May to have one last lunge as Gabor Chontos does go to 4th. Pressakan's there as well on the attack. Can he try and get ahead of Crozon? He can. He's got to try and get ahead of Chontos, but I think that might be a little bit too late now for Pressakan. But either way, he's going to hold on to a very nice P5. And I don't think there's anything that Sergio Sabrino can do here either on the back of Jensen Rayson.
His two Ferraris will still have it out into turn number 10. Both of them putting the Haas in the back pocket. To the outside goes Presscan. Late move as Chonstos tries to hold on, trying to duck back now as Presscan to the inside. It'll be the long way round. It'll have to be through turn 12. The Haas of Crozon right in the thick of the battle as well. Little bit of contact in the scrap for P4 and P5. Penalty for Presscan. But through the final corner, under the Catalan sky, the King of Spain, it is Luca Rapasa here after 33 laps from Rosa Sabrino. Chonstos ahead of Crozon and Tulki. Presscan, I think, just held off the Haas over the line, but with the penalty falls to P7 ahead of the two Mercedes, and Scott Holmes rounds out your top 10 just ahead of Kokeni in the Racing Bull. Santana with that disconnect early on will come home in 12th ahead of the final two finishers sideways over the line. What a box office way to kickstart this new journey, this new chapter to be written, and it is Luca Rapasa, your first race winner of the social races.
Great action. In the end, Crozon got ahead of Pressakan by 30 thousandths of a second, of course, without that penalty. So close to the line for those two. Some brilliant racing. I mean, the Ferraris put on a brilliant show this evening. Of course, it was Luca Rapasa who took the win. Certainly one of those that, despite having a bit of a poor grid position for his standards, he was always going to be one of those fighting for the win. It was Jensen Rayson in second. Really good performance from him in the Alpine, and Sergio Sabrino holding on to the podium around his home circuit in the end ahead of Gabor Chontos and Joris Crozon reigning off the top 5. Then we had Larry Tulki a great performance, P6, of course, had some issues in qualifying but did manage to get himself quite high up here. Then we had Judah Pressakan in 7th ahead of Tycho Hardy, Julian Koffenbach and Scott Holmes, your top 10. Great work from Scott from 20th up to 10th. Then we had Tomasz Kokeni, Alexander Dimas, Alex Santana and Lucas Beesnake, all your cars finishing the race. And then we lost Liam Stevens, Gabriel Quintino, Cameron Dowd, Stephen Avasso, Tony Hirtala, Tamas Gal, Alejandro Loureiro and Joe Murphy. So many retirements, but there wasn't that many in the pit lane. A lot of them were due to incidents. So I suppose we'll let a few of them off for that this evening. But no, that was really a good racing. And I mean, if we can get some of that in the main season, that's going to be some brilliant action to get into.
Hugely exciting. Box office, how we described it. Really enjoyable watch that. Great win from Luca Rapasa from 7th on the grid, and hopefully, like we said at the very start, that's the appetizer, just to whet your appetite as to what is potentially to come over the next few weeks and months. But that is the start. The bar has been set. Let's go and clear it by some tune. Nathan, final thoughts from yourself?
That was a really good race. I mean, heading into this main season, of course, it'll be Mr. TK, Tom Knights will be in the commentary box alongside you for the majority of the season. Maybe I'll jump in here and there, but I'll definitely be keeping an eye and watching some of the action. I think we've had some really good racing tonight, and I think the main thing to remember is this grid is, you know, for those that watch PSG, you're looking at an F2 grid with a few of the F1 superstars thrown into the action. It's a really competitive grid, so of course make sure to stick around for what should be a really good season. No, I'm really excited to see what happens, and of course I think we got a show today from some of our drivers of what they can really do when they get put into the pressure moments.
Yeah, and I've jumped the gun as well because hopefully we are going to have a little bit of a chin wag with Luca Rapassa and maybe the top 3 as well. Let's chat to everybody. Let's have a discussion with everybody. Let's see how it was playing out for everybody involved. And obviously some drivers won't necessarily want to come and have a chat after that one, but we'll wait to see who wants to come and have a little bit of a chin wag. Well, we wait for that just to update you on what... Well, no, we won't, because Luca Rapassa is here, and we're going to drag in the race winner first and foremost. Luca Rapassa, welcome in. Firstly, congratulations on your victory from 7th on the grid. Looked like a stressful one at times, but in the end, coming through with a very impressive performance. Luca, where are you? Earth to Luca.
Oh, has he not got permission to speak?
Has he not got permissions? Help somebody! One of the admins. Hopefully, we will bring Luca Rapassa to you very shortly. Deafened and undeafened. Luca, are you there?
No. Let's try Jensen. Jensen, can you talk? Can he unmute? I don't think he can now. Oh no. That's not ideal.
Might be the most anticlimactic interviews that we've ever held in the history of sim racing. We'll give it a little bit longer to see if we can have a chat. Yeah, Luca Rapassa confirming.
Oh, we've got it fixed according to Zach. Come.
Jensen,
Luca.
Anybody there?
Been fixed, but I don't think it quite has.
The anticipation is real. Can't wait to see what's going to happen. We've built this up massively.
It's on push to talk or something. Well, no, it's just they haven't got permissions to change it. Oh no. Dear me.
Great.
Zach said he fixed it, so it's all on him.
Oh, we've thrown the blame game out there.
I mean, the good thing is at least this isn't in the main season, and we're trying to interview the race winner after a really enthralling opening race, and they can't talk.
The point of the social races.
Oh,
hey,
yes!
I'm alive.
Oh, Nathan, take it away.
Can Luca talk or not? We'll leave Luca until you can get it sorted. So, Jensen, we'll speak to you first. So, first of all, great race. I don't think I've actually spoke to you in an interview room yet, so it's the first time for both of us. But well done on the P2, a great result.
Yeah, I mean, pace was pretty good. I mean, quali as well. I mean, last game I was pretty horrific in quali. I had like one good quali this season and then just bottled everything else. I was about like 3 thousandths off my PB, which is extremely uncommon with last game. So obviously, I mean, it's a social race, so I guess, you know, the pressure in your head isn't as high, but it's still, you know, it's promising, obviously. And then the race pace was really good, the management. I mean, it's really difficult with this game because you mess up with the battery once, and then, you know, you have 20 cars behind you with full batteries about to blast it down the main straight. And it's, yeah, so you need to manage really well. But yeah, everything was perfect. I mean, P2 to P2, can't complain. Strategy was good. So yeah, all good.
Really, and I think, of course, this is probably from what I've seen, one of your best races in terms of quality performance and race performance. I mean, is that something to do with just Barcelona, or are you hoping that this is something that's a little bit more across the board, and hopefully it's going to be a little bit more consistent to be fighting right at the top?
Yeah.
Oh, it's muted.
No.
They've took it away. They've took his permissions
They've
off.
been rescinded. No. Hopefully we can get Jensen back on the line. But
there we are. Oh my god. Wait, what were you saying?
Are you hoping this will be a little bit more consistent for you in the future?
Oh,
these
yeah, I mean, Spain has always been like kind of a mid track for me. It's never been like my best, never my worst. So, I don't know. Maybe for this game, my best tracks might, you know, shift around a bit. But I think if I'm good in Spain, then should be, fairly decent in other tracks as well. Obviously, hope to keep this pace up. I mean, I don't see why not. Just keep putting in plenty of hours, and the results will come.
Of course, and one last question, of course, probably the most important, is it F1 25 or F1 26 in your opinion? What's the better game?
I don't know, because as a whole, or like just the driving?
Well, for you, what do you prefer to race on?
To race on is easily this game, because it's just so much more exciting. You're not just sat behind a car you just sat in the same position the entire race, maybe undercut to get one position, and then that's it. Like that was all it was last game. So this game is a lot more strategical. You have to it's more difficult because you have to be smart with your battery, and if you're not, then you'll face a lot of issues, like I said. And Luca is clearly very smart with his batteries, and he's rapid, obviously. So it's more difficult, I'd say, because there's a lot more things you're thinking about, particularly with the battery. But I think it's more fun because it's a racing game and you're actually able to race. So yeah,
definitely. Well, Jensen, we'll let you go. Great race today, and hopefully we'll see you again once we head into the main season, and also into the main season of league racing on a whole. So have a good evening, and well done on the P2.
Cheers.
Cheers, Jensen.
And I've got an idea, Tom. Should we move into the waiting room, maybe?
We could do that. That would be a very good shout. Should we jump across? And we'll... Repass is in. Luca.
Hello.
Yes.
Hey.
Excellent. Right. I've already asked the question once, so I'll make it a little bit shorter. Strong performance from yourself after qualifying. That I'm imagining you were a little bit disappointed with P6, or P7, I should say, but fought your way back through very nicely.
Well, I had my bank was alright, and then I had traffic the next two laps when I was almost a tenth up on both laps, and then my last lap was just kind of ass. So a bit disappointed with the quality performance, but I knew the race pace was really good, so I wasn't that worried.
And what was the game plan for the race? Because we saw you were very patient for the majority of that, and then once you got into the lead, you never really looked back.
Well, after I got into P2, I was just trying to, save the tires a bit, let Jensen pull me along, and then when the time was there, which was when Sergio started pushing me a little bit, I was like, I'm gonna overtake and then just drive my own pace, because I knew I had a couple of tenths in hand. So I was just doing my own race after that, and wasn't really under any pressure after.
And for people that maybe haven't experienced the 26 DLC too much, what would you say are the main differences between the 25 cars and the 26 cars, and the racecraft and the etiquette, and how you have to manage everything?
Well, first of all, the battery, of course, is incredibly different. It's really difficult to have a consistent amount of battery, so you're not lacking anywhere to other cars. Apart from that, it's also the dirty air's a lot less, so you can follow really closely and catch people off guard really easily.
Well, I think that is pretty much that. Thank you for jumping in. Eventually, we got it sorted out, and congratulations on what was a very, very positive performance, and hopefully more of the same from you when the season kicks off in about a month's time.
I hope as well.
Very much, Luca, and that will round off the interviews that we're going to have. Just going to have the couple of chats there. Nathan, I've already asked you this, but we're going to go again. Final thoughts from yourself on what was a great start.
Yes, a really good race. I mean, qualifying was really close. I think it was 2/10 separated in the top 10, really close. And I'd imagine once we get into the main season with some more of our really competitive drivers, that gap could probably come down a little bit more as well. So really good qualifying. The race as well, really interesting. There was so many different strategies going on, and at some point you never quite knew who was going to win, and I mean that's what we love to see. Whereas on this game you already had an idea about halfway through who's probably going to win. So great work from the drivers there in providing us with some great action and some great racing. And I think for the calendar itself, I said earlier, you can tell it's been made by those that are in league racing, because it is really good calendar. Most of the tracks on there, I'd say for me 10 out of 12, all promote really good racing. So I'm very excited for the main season, of course. Mr. Tom Knights will be here alongside you, Tom, for the rest of the seasons. But I'm hoping that at some point I can maybe jump in for a race or two, because I definitely don't want to miss out on the action.
Mondo Duplantis style, we've set the bar. Let's just keep getting higher and higher and higher. Clearing that bar more and more. Pleasure. Thank you for everybody that's joined us on this lovely Tuesday evening. Hang out and just see how things go. Just whet the appetite for what is hopefully to come over the next few weeks and months. Next social race before we do our goodbyes, that is coming up in a couple of weeks' time. 30th of June, I believe that is going to be at Zandvoort. That'll be a completely different test, realistically. Very different type of circuit, and it's a very different type of racing that the drivers will need to try and get accustomed to.
Yeah, definitely. I think quali once again is going to be quite close, really tight, but the racing is going to be so much more different because there's so many little places you can overtake. I mean, thinking of it, you've got maybe turn 1 as an overtaking opportunity, the chicane down at turn 11, and then maybe, if you can get a good run, maybe in towards the final corner at Abbey Line Dyke. I think those are really your only overtaking opportunities. So that's going to be an interesting one for the drivers to get settled into. And I think a lot of that race might be more down to tyre strategy and, you know, track position rather than trying to force your way through a field. So definitely a bit of a different type of test once we head into the race.
A few more areas as well to potentially trip up on, and we might see a few more whoopsies with some Tony Hawk style sausage curves that find some of the middle sector in particular. But before we head out, Nathan, on the old social medias, where can people find you if they want to check out what you're up to?
Oh dear me, I'm still not the same name on everything yet. I'm different everywhere. I need to find an actual proper good name. So over on Twitter, RichieF1 with the I's replaced with ones. Over on Instagram, it's Nathan Richards 33. And over on TikTok, Nathan Richards 1. Not going to bother giving anybody my Discord. You can find us in the VPS server, which I think I'd imagine is in the description. So if you want my Discord, you've got to go through this Discord server first. So yes, I think it's in the description. I hope it is anyway. Otherwise, I'm sending everybody nowhere.
Links in the description if they're there or not. Yeah, thank you for jumping in alongside me. Pleasure as always. Be in the commentary box with you, and if you're interested in what I'm doing as well, wilker.coms on Instagram and TikTok. But thank you so much for joining us on this. And in a couple of weeks' time, we will stay in Europe and we'll move just, not quite next door, but fairly close. From Spain to the Netherlands, Zandvoort is the next venue on the agenda. Remember, 14th of July. That is when the season kickstarts down under in Australia. We're very, very excited. Until next time, for myself and Nate, very soon.